these days I'm much more interested in how the song holds up and whether I feel connected to it and enjoying performing it and am able to work with people that I enjoy and respect, and do I have an audience that's receptive to it, and that can be 100 people or 1,000 people, but it's I think I've zoomed in a bit and scaled down my ambitions, not for lack of ambition, but just because I didn't know what was what in the early days.
I spent so long climbing the hill, but I only started moving when I got still. The pace these days, it suits my style, and I think I'll stay here a while.
Hey, Carll, thank you so much for, not coming across the river in this case, but just coming
just down the road.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, man. And congrats on the new record.
Thank you.
We call it that.
Yeah.
The new collection of songs. I've been spending all week with the music, as I told you. And it's just a great record. And also, this may be a great way to start the conversation, is that the songs are different song to song, both like in tone, but theme is maybe a way to put it. And here's a question out of the gate. Is that something that you think about when you write songs, how this song will fit in with the others? Or maybe what does my set need right now? Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll stop that question right there and see what you say.
This was my 10th record, and it's the first time that I was ever writing for a record as a piece, you know. In the past, it was just write a song, write another song, collect them at a certain point and go, do I have enough for a record? And then if there's extras, go through and see if there's a theme. But always the theme was kind of retroactive, you know, and sometimes it lined up because of a certain point of life or certain things were on my mind, and themes appeared naturally, but it was never intentional before. With this one, I got 3 or 4 songs under my belt, and I realized that there was a theme. And then as I started, and then that informed my writing after that, because I saw for the first time a framework, and it was really interesting to me and liberating to have those parameters and kind of know what I was going for.
What were those parameters?
Well, I think it started with, I think this record on a whole is kind of a midlife assessment and guidebook for myself. And it was something that I wanted to be able to kind of work through some of my challenges and then have advice for myself at a later date, you know, through some of the things I had become aware of or figured out for me, maybe not for anybody else, but for me. And so I wanted it to be honest. I didn't want it to, I didn't put a lot of characters in it or secondhand observational stuff. It was more internal. And so I wanted to be able to look back in a year or 10 years and recognize a truthfulness there instead of a storyteller mode. Mm-hmm. 'Cause that guy's not always trustworthy. He's doing different things. And this one was more personal. So I wanted to look back and know that I could trust myself as a writer and then, have these takeaways that I learned as sort of a roadmap for myself. I always say as I'm navigating life, I'm going to end up in the ditch. I'm going to fall off. You could tell me the secret to life right now and I'll forget it in 5 minutes. So it was my way of kind of tattooing it in my world so that I could come back to it regularly. And, so that's what I was going for as I was writing this.
Do most of the songs you write make it on a recording or
Oh,
Percentage is not quite the right term, but
yeah. Well, I guess a pretty high number.
Will you quit trying to write a song halfway through if it's just like not happening? Especially that's more easy to say in a co-write, but set something aside maybe and chip away at it later, or.
Yeah, I'm actually more productive in co-writes than I am on my own, because the co-writes, there's an accountability partner there, or so it's harder for me to just give up. On my own, my discipline is not that strong, and my criticism is high, my self-criticism, and so for years I couldn't even keep a journal because I was just I was judging that, and so then when it came to songs and things that would be shared with the world, it was even harder. And this was before I learned the value of drafts and editing and redrafts, because I think I expected, growing up on certain musicians, whether it's Dylan or Towns or these people like Christopherson or Bryant, like it seemed like it just, in my mind, this stuff must just come out of the ether.
Yeah. And
you either catch it or you don't, and you either have that ability or you don't. And so every time I sat down, I was like, I gotta catch something, and that's a part of it. But it wasn't until fairly recently, in the last decade, where I started recognizing that that's just one part of it, is catching it, and I try and set myself up to do that. But then I got to turn off that critical, judgmental part of my brain, because that crushes my creativity. So I try to just set myself up to be very free in that, and open my mind up to whatever comes. And I get some really pleasant surprises, and I get a lot of trash too. But I'll get as much of that as I can, and then I go back in a second process of, now I'm going to look at it with a more critical eye and see what's working and what's not. Get a draft. Now we're going to play it back. Edit it, and I realized the craft is much more important now. In my early days, I just thought you got drunk and caught lightning bolts and
right, drunk, edit sober.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're describing a new version of that.
I just didn't have the edit part, so I was just write drunk and hope for the best, and that when it works, it's awesome. But when it doesn't, then you can feel like a fraud, or I could, because it's like, well, it's not working, so what am I?
It's so interesting, because I feel like my own experience of just the creative process is that both things are needed, obviously, and it's really difficult. I'm in a season right now where feeling a little paralyzed by my own ineptitude, and it's difficult to turn off the editor. And yet the other side of it is that if you're not rigorously self-critical, you don't put out your best work, and it is very difficult to do those two things. And I know what you're just describing is like being free in the moment. For me, that is like, it's interesting to hear you say you couldn't even write in a journal. And like, to me, I think my journal I have so many of them, and it's garbage all the way through. But I was always just like, it doesn't matter. This is the only way I can know you'll ever see this. And this is like the only time when I can just be like, I don't have to write a good sentence.
Yeah.
It's
not for anybody else.
It's not for anybody else. But it's not always easy to put away the editor while you're channeling the spirit. And I don't know if you can put some words to this, but is there a strategy you've employed to kind of keep those two critters separate?
Totally, yeah. And I mean, I learned of a thing many years ago. I'm sure you probably read The Artist's Way, and there's the morning pages idea, and it's just like, just get your junk out. It's that concept, but I don't write it. These days, if I'm writing, it is to journal and sort of think through my issues and try and work stuff out in my mind, life stuff. My way to access the creative side these days, so I've got kind of a two-part process, is I'll just get, God bless the iPhone. I hate to say this, but
we all secretly think it.
It's just that recording device is. when I'm feeling it, I'll just put the phone down, hit record, get my guitar, and I'll just go. There's not a prompt, or maybe I'll have a line sometimes, but mostly it's just, let me just start playing, and I'm going to sing to what I'm playing, and I just feel it, open myself up. Maybe I'm a little stoned, maybe not. But either way, I'm purely just following that vibe or whatever energy. Okay, this chord makes me feel this, and okay, and structures will start taking place or not, and maybe they're crap, maybe it's something worth hanging on to, but I just try not to judge it, and I mumble, a lot of mumbling, and then maybe words pop into my head, and I'll just sort of stream of conscious, make shit up, and that's really liberating to me and a whole lot of fun, and the creative juices are really flowing. It's like I feel like I'm on the edge of something, and there's not all these things that are holding me back, all this insecurity and self-judgment and everything. So that's step one.
And is the phone recording, it's just on? It might be 20 minutes?
Yeah. Or, sometimes I'll run out of steam and I'll go, this is obviously not any good. Okay, stop. And then, okay, well, let's go this. Let me try a D minor and then see where I go from there. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I'll get, 4 or 5 in a sitting, or sometimes it'll be, if one thing's going well, I'll try different versions of it, and it'll be a 20-minute thing. And then I shut it off. Like, that gets me really, my adrenaline going, and I have a hard time doing actual work after that on the song. So what I find is planes are my time. I fly a whole lot, and I'll get, it's an uninterrupted stretch of hours, and I'll get my recordings out, and that's my editing time. So then I'll go through and listen to all these songs, and it's okay, delete. Okay, this is a good title. Let me file that away. This has got a whole chorus. Okay, let me file that. I put them in their little areas depending on maybe it's just a good melody.
You're listening, transcribing?
Yeah. Well, I'm not even, a lot of times I'm not even writing out lyrics, but just listen to it and feeling it and seeing if I think there's something there, or if a lyric pops up, maybe I'll start a work page, a Google Doc or something, and put a title and whatever words I can decipher, because a lot of times it's just babble.
Sure. But
then I've got a starting point, and then the sort of step 3 is sitting down if I'm getting ready for a record, or if I just have a day where I'm feeling like actually doing work. Then I'll sit down and I'll go through my files and say, okay, this was a great melody. Let's write a song. But it sort of allows me to capture the freedom and creative stage uninhibited. And then I've got a starting point. So I'm not starting from scratch when I sit down. I've got something I'm excited about, and maybe it has a few pieces, or maybe it has 60% of it done already. So it's really fun when, I've done things like that where it's like, I'll look back and I was like, man, that's 80% of the song just off the top of the head. And mm-hmm. It needs a lot of editing, but like the bones and then some are there. And that's really cool when you get lucky like that.
Mm-hmm. Is it such that, you mentioned being occasionally surprised and by your writing, I think there's nothing better. One cannot train for that. It's something that's brand new every time it happens. But you also can't bottle it and cash in some of those. The analogies are coming fast and furious here. You can't just cash in a surprise chip when you want to. And it's really, this is, I think, probably a hard thing to articulate, but is there a moment when you're like, okay, that's me. That is that's something I would say that feels true. That mm-hmm. feels and how do you, I want to say how do you know that is? I know there's not really a way to say it, but.
It happened on this record a couple times, and it's such a delightful feeling. And that I look at it like that separation I'm talking about between when your monkey mind is on, your critical self-judgment, the world, your pressures, your to-do list, that is such an non-creative space for me, and it's predictable. I can craft a song. I'm a decent craftsman. I can turn you in something that rhymes and maybe has a plot, but there's nothing exciting. There's rarely something exciting to me if I'm starting from that place. But when I can go into the mode of discovery I'm just going to open my mouth and see what comes out. And there's all these beautiful surprises, and every once in a while I'll land on one and I'll just be like, God damn, that's it. That's that line or that sentiment or that phrasing. That's me, or there's something there. Whether it's me or not, there's something there that is going to pique my interest, and that can become the seed for the next thing. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like I recognize it, and that's kind of how I write. I don't really sit down with stuff unless I have that in some way. It doesn't always mean it always turns into a good song, but more often than not, I find if it really grabbed me in that way where I'm excited and it's a high for me when I come across them, then I know I've got something. That's my cue that this is worth following up on.
Yeah, I think that's a great word, the excitement, because that's not something that's not an intellectual qualification. It's not something that you go like, oh, that is good. It's the excitement. You can't fake it. It's
like, oh wow,
it's something emotional.
That's a cool surprise. And the intellectual stuff can come later as you're crafting, and I can be like, when I turn that little seed into a great line or something, the editing and the restructuring, and then I'm like, oh, you're pretty good, man. Well done. I can appreciate it on that level.
Yeah.
And that's its own high as well.
Sure.
But it's not the same sort of jolt of electricity of, wow, this just came out of the ether.
Yeah.
It wasn't craft. It was just some kind of miraculous in your head. Something just came out.
Talk to me about growing up in Texas, Woodlands. I think that's where you're from. Yeah. And I didn't really come across this in my my research, but is there an early story or some kind of moment when you're like, oh, this is the kind of songwriting that I want to do? Or did your parents play? Were you in a musical family? Who were the early forefathers?
Yeah, my dad, I don't think he's ever turned on the radio. My mom came from a musical family. Her brother, I think, played in garage bands with Mickey Newberry and Kenny Rogers, and her father could do all the cowboy songs and all that. But the brother, who was a singer, was in Attica in prison most of my life, so I never heard him sing. And so I wasn't exposed to much music. My mom was a theater major and she loved music, but it was a pretty limited record collection, like Simon and Garfunkel and Elvis Christmas and stuff like that. I think my early thing, for sure, the first big one was I had a Kenny Rogers Greatest Hits tape, and we didn't have a TV at that time in my life, and I was kind of a latchkey kid. My parents were working, and so and I was an only child till I was 9, so there was a lot of time with myself, and I had this cassette player and this one tape, and there was a lot of songs like the Rose or Islands in the Stream that I had no interest in, but there were 3 in particular: Lucille, Coward of the County, and The Gambler, which were these epic story songs with massive hooks. And I remember getting so invested in the characters, and so to me that was my television. Like there was a whole world just opened up to me. So that was the first thing I remember, and some of my first musical memories were just hearing on the radio in Texas. I remember hearing Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, when I was probably 5, or Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys.
When was the Kenny Rogers record?
How old were you? Probably 8. Mm-hmm.
And then what's the leap between being like, oh, this is fantastic, and I want to do this, or I want to try to do this?
Well, I was really into country music, and I would just sing for fun around the house and annoy everybody. But when I was 15, my parents sporadically take me to church, the Unitarian Church, and they're not known for their choirs, or at least the one we went to, there was no singers. So they would bring in acts. Like one day it'd be somebody reading Dante's Inferno, and one day it was a folk trio singing Dylan songs. And I was there on a day when this folk trio came in and they played Blowing in the Wind and A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, and With God on Our Side, or something like that. These like powerful songs. And I was kind of young idealistic kid who loved music and loved country music and rock music. Like I was obsessed with it. But when I was exposed to that early Dylan folk stuff, it just blew the doors off for me. I was like, oh, this is more than just about being fun or expressing yourself. Like you can change the world, or this has the power to reach you in a way that I wasn't really aware of before.
It's not just entertainment.
Yeah. So I asked my parents for a guitar, and that Christmas they got me a guitar. So I think being exposed to Dylan, like I'm sure thousands and thousands of aspiring songwriters, was the thing that really made me dive in.
And you got that was 15, you got a guitar.
Yeah.
Who taught you how to play?
Oh, Mel Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a chord book. First of all, my parents bought me a 12-string, which is not an ideal guitar to learn on. It only had 6 strings, but the neck was, 4 inches
They're
wide.
like, if you can play this, you can play anything.
And so I got a Mel Bay chord book, so I learned my chords, but the only song I knew was Camptown Races. Like this was very unfulfilling for me.
Yeah. That's in the book, I think.
Yeah. And then the big turning point for me was, like my one sort of gift in those days was I was really good at remembering lyrics, so I could sing along to everything. I wasn't good at guitar, I wasn't a good singer, and I wasn't writing much, but I could remember every word to all these songs. And I went to the music store and I got 3 songbooks. I got a Dylan songbook, a Jimmy Buffett songbook, and a Willie Nelson songbook. And I knew all these songs inside and out. I just didn't know how to play them. And I knew the chords. I just didn't know how to combine them. And then right there in the book, it would say, put your fingers here, play a C chord. And then once that clicked, it was like, oh, well, I know these. And now I know how to put it together. And then the whole world opened up because whatever that code was to, the world of 3 or 4 songs.
Tumblers in the lock lined up.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, so when did you start playing out then? When did you, what's an early gig? I don't know why. I'm just so interested in this stuff, these origin stories, because it's such an exciting time of life to be young and full of idealism, and then to actually have the tires meet the road and try to do it in front of somebody. It
is. I look back nostalgically, and I just moved, and I was going through I was unpacking boxes, and I found all these old journals from high school and college, and I'm reading one of them, and it says, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll be a history professor. That's the only thing I think I could maybe do, but I have to go to school for 6 years. But what I really want to do is be a singer-songwriter. And I think maybe, I know the odds are slim, but I feel like I've got something. And then I read another one that says, I hope one day to have a couple of albums and have opened for Lyle Lovett and written a song for Willie Nelson. And this was before I was playing gigs. I started doing an open mic night or 2 in college. So I lived in a dry county, so there was nowhere to play. But I would just play at parties or,
this
out
was
on the square.
Still in Woodlands?
No, I went to college in Conway, Arkansas at Hendrix College. Ben Nichols from Lucero was there at the time I was there. He was 2 years ahead of me. And quite a few people, actually, it was a very small school, but quite a few people kind of carved out music careers. And so I just started playing where I could. And then I got out of college. I was a terrible student. I had a history degree and no job prospects, and just was dying to go give music a shot. So I moved down to this beach town called Crystal Beach, Texas. And it was the cheapest beach in America. And I thought I'll go live by the ocean and try and write some songs. And they had these bars, these dive bars, that I would hang out at, try and meet people, have drinks. And one day I asked the owner, this place called Bob's Sports Bar and World Famous Grill, and I asked Bob, I said, man, would you mind if I set up in the corner over here by the slot machines and just played music? You don't have to pay me, but let me put a beer pitcher out for tips. He said, sure. And so I started doing that. And there was just a whole bunch of bars on this strip of this peninsula. And so I was the only guy who could play guitar and sing at the same time on the whole peninsula. And so I started going to all these bars, and and working. And it was all covers, you know. I was just doing Prine and Buffett and Christofferson and Lyle Lovett and Dylan and Paul Simon, whatever I knew. But it was really exciting because I was playing music for people now, and then they started giving me tips, or I'd get $50 for a show or something, and I was like, oh wow, this has gotten real, or for me.
Yeah,
it was
sure.
an exciting time.
Realer, and then one wonders if one can take it to the next level and persevere, or meet the moment. And what was the first song that kind of created an opportunity for you? Just something that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be the first one. It's just,
I wrote a song
where somebody else said, "Hey, you're songwriting." Sorry, you're starting to answer it. I'm like,
I stumbled in this bar on Galveston Island called the Old Quarter Acoustic Cafe, and it was it was owned by Townes Van Zant's old bass player, a guy named Rex Bell, and it was like a shrine for songwriters, a shrine for Townes, Blaze Foley, and Lightning Hopkins. But it was a place where you came to play your own songs. And so I started doing open mic nights there with other songwriters. The first time in my life I'd been around other songwriters. And then on the weekends, like legit touring artists would come through, and I'd get to open for them and stuff. And I had a song called Easy Come, Easy Go, which is like a 6-minute ballad. And I don't know if it's any good or not, but I remember it was the one that I wrote where I said, okay, I've leveled up in some way from where I was. And then I got some positive feedback from people. And, at first it was you're not half bad. And I was like, oh, I was thrilled. And then it was, there's levels of compliments that, like, I started with a very low bar. But, when I had a couple people I respected say, that's a really good song, then it put a lot of wind in my sails and gave me a lot of confidence that I desperately needed at that time.
When you're young, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I don't think so. There was lots of things I wanted to do with my career, songwriting, stages I wanted to play, people I wanted to tour with. I think that you've gotten to do more than a lot of folks have gotten to do. And my questions are too, did you have that same kind of ideal, or you mentioned, wanting to have a Willie Nelson cut, and then has that changed now, where you are at in your career? Are you kind of like, are there still other things stages you want to play, or do you think about it differently?
I definitely think about it differently. I'm much more interested these days in the work and the life that I live, and the experience and how they integrate together. Because what I realized, it was a slow realization, and I'm still figuring some of it out as I try and figure out how I'm going to move forward. But I was young. I wanted the respect of my songwriting heroes. It was really important to me, but I wanted the fame. I wanted the money. I wanted the legacy. I wanted all the big things, and I thought more is more. Like, more is better. And now I realize I don't like necessarily playing in front of huge crowds. I'm not in my comfort zone. It can be fun in moments, but that's just not where I'm at my best. Or I also don't like a tremendous amount of attention. I'm kind of, it makes me uncomfortable. So publicity and things like that. So it's this mix of, like, I want to put stuff out there and I want to have a good career, but I want it to be my career, and one that is the way I'd like it to be, and not just here's the metrics of success and you're just chasing them and hoping one of them hits. Because I've reached a few of them and gone, that wasn't all I thought it would be. So let me find what I actually care about. And these days I'm much more interested in how the song holds up and whether I feel connected to it and am enjoying performing it and am able to work with people that I enjoy and respect, and do I have an audience that's receptive to it? And that can be 100 people or 1,000 people, but it's I think I've zoomed in a bit and scaled down my ambitions not for lack of ambition, but just because I didn't know what was what in the early days.
Sure. Well, you had head full of dreams, and you wanted to go out there and make a name for yourself.
Yeah.
That's a young man game.
You know, I got the heroes, which are they're these huge figures and cultural icons, and so in your mind, like, that guy is so cool. I just wish I could be like him. And then, you know, as you get older and realize, like, there's a price to pay for a lot of that, and also I'm not that. And I don't want to have to force it. So let me find out what I am and lean into that and do that as best I can.
That leaning into what you are game is one that everyone can play, which is encouraging, I feel like, in some ways. And I know that when I moved to Nashville, I was came out of the Seattle scene and had some records, and it was my day job enough, and had some opportunities, and yay. And then moved to Nashville, promptly fell on my face and had to work a straight job for 3 years. And the best thing that could ever happen to me is really purifying and clarifying is maybe a better way to put it. And then there was like 10 years of touring constantly. And most of that was just like booking my own shows and driving around by myself, and hoping to, like, someday I could be in a tour bus or da-da-da. And then I was probably getting up on 40 when I saw that there was guys that were like a lot more successful than me, who had some of those things, and seeing them from the outside, I'm like, oh, they're doing the same thing I'm doing. It's like the crowds are bigger or smaller, the tours are longer or shorter, but it's still like meeting at a parking lot at 4 a.m. or being gone 5 days a week. And I kind of was like, I have known this life for 10 years longer, and I know what it is. And I like it. I liked it. I liked having done, I'm glad I got to do it. I moved to Nashville, like, wanting to know what it was like to be sick of touring. And I couldn't even imagine that being possible, because all I wanted to do was just play shows. And then I kind of got to the place where I'm like, oh, it's all the same thing, kind of night after night. And there's other things I want to do. And for me, the goal became, how can I make my life be as close to day to day, like how I would want to live that day. Yeah. And that was a metric that you kind of had a little more control over, in a way. And there's there's a sacrifice in that. But there's a sacrifice in kind of everything. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know exactly what I'm trying to say. You know, like, having a family now is a huge part of my identity. Maybe the most important part of my identity now. And identity, that's the first time I've used that word in my life, probably. But it's like this, I'm in this thing right now where I just really want to, balance isn't quite the right word, but having like a creatively challenging and satisfying life. And maybe that's not going to involve playing a whole bunch of shows. But in absence of all of that moving around the planet, there's a lot of opportunity to write long form fictions, for instance, or screenplays. And it's just interesting. Like, you couldn't have told me that when I was young. I would have like laughed and like, there's only one way. You know,
you get locked into that vision, and maybe it's all you know, because like that's all you see. And I certainly was aware of again, in sort of the last decade, looking around, going, I've got a great career. I'm so lucky and blessed in so many ways, and I'm miserable. And I kept thinking, well, if I just got this, or if I just had that, or made this money, or got this tour, or whatever. And then I was like, well, here's 27 levels above me. Like, at what point is it enough? And that contentment has to maybe come from within, and not from the world telling you you're great, or your bank account, you know? And so that's when I started shifting a bit and going, maybe there are other ways. Maybe it just doesn't have to be this one way. And I haven't like branched out like you have, or picked up different forms of expression, but I have realized the importance of making your time when you're out there as close to how you like it to be, because that is your life. And as well as when you're not out there, how do you have a life? And that's become much more interesting to me than how do I get this radio single to a certain point, you know. I mean, I still care, but at the end of the day, this is not a dress rehearsal, and I just turned 50, and it's like, okay, well, if I don't figure out my own path soon, it's going to be too late. And I think that's important.
Yeah, gut feeling there.
Yeah, I'm like sneaking suspicion that maybe there's more to this than just watching 10,000 other drunk guys and what they did, and assuming I'm going to find happiness if I'm better than they are or have a better career, you know.
We were talking before the mics were on about books and looking over books, and it's no surprise to me, given your literary acumen in your songwriting, that you would have an interest in it and a relationship to literature. And I'm just curious about, some books that stand out in your mind, or what, maybe just that's a good stopping point. Mostly I like talk about books.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you in my early years, Kundera was a big one. Milan Kundera was huge for me, and I like a proper novel that I can get wrapped up in. But what I liked about Kundera, and maybe I'm trying to think of some other writers that are similar, but they'll be telling you a story, but they'll bring in philosophy, they'll bring in politics, they'll bring in sex, they'll bring in there's observational and thoughtful stuff weaving it throughout. That's not just a plot line. It's the book or the characters are an opportunity to weave this stuff in, and so I always felt like my world broadened when I was hip to that stuff, and I said, oh well, he's talking about Faust or Bach. Let me okay, and it's in a certain context. Well, let me go explore that a little bit, and so I like things like that.
Do you read more fiction than nonfiction? Or
no,
vice versa?
I read more nonfiction.
Yeah.
And lately, like right now, I'm reading a book. I can't remember the title of it, but it's about James Cook, Captain James Cook, British sailor who discovered Hawaii and Tahiti, and it's just fascinating to me. But I'm kind of a history nerd, and I like biographies. I like historical books, and that's where I lean more these days.
There's you were pointing out that The Last Stand book up there, written by Phil Brick, I think, and he wrote a book called In the Heart of the Sea. I think it's called. It was made into a movie, and it's about the whaling ship accident calamity that inspired Moby Dick.
Right.
Highly recommend. I read it twice, like almost back to back, because it's like in that category of unputdownable, and just a riveting history. There's also a guy, Victor Davis Hanson. Do you know him at all? Oh, he's like a military historian. He's written 1,000 books, but I just read one that's about the Peloponnesian War that I never, like, I heard that phrase, you know, I'm just like, what's Peloponnesian? It's such an exotic word.
Yeah.
You know, I knew it was something to do with the Greeks, but like, and so it's just, it's like that stuff. I share your love of history. I think that it was kind of my major in school. It was kind of, I guess, a great books major would be a way of putting it. Mm-hmm. That sounds really snobby, but it was kind of a snobby major maybe. But there's just, for people that are interested in history, the story of history is the story of the present, unrolled. And I share that. Yeah,
there's something about knowing. I find some solace knowing that everything I'm doing has been done. The life experience, human experience has been done millions and millions and billions of times, and there is this universal thing to it all. We are trying to survive. We are trying to find love. We are trying to find peace of mind. We're trying to stroke our egos or get power or feel special, and all the civilizations and all the religions and all the men and women and children and have gone through this, and I think I'll bring it to my record here. Like that's it's called We're Only Human, and that's the theme, is that we are, no matter how different or unique you are or what your circumstances are, we are all on this trip, and we're all born and we're all going to die, and what happens in the middle is, in between is what happens. But the power of your mindset and your intentions and your ability to make the most out of that is interesting to me, but also, we're all going to screw up, we're all going to fail, we're all going to get in the ditch, we're all going to hurt people, we're all going to get hurt. And there was something powerful to me. I mean, that's a pretty basic realization, but for me, understanding that like taking my ego out of it, and like I'm just one human being of billions, and I'm not special, and that gave me some peace, and that everybody I look at and every other person, no matter how much or how little I have in common with them, is going through some version of that. And it made me feel safe in some way, and like connected to people in a way that I didn't get when I was riding my ego or trying to be unique.
Yeah,
special.
that I love that song, and there's a lot of empathy in that song and in that writing and in the new record. And so this rings true. When you're saying that, I was reminded of that. I think it's an Arabic quote that when a man dies, a universe dies. And it's really, gets at the kind of what you're saying in an oblique way, but that we are, each of us, the whole world unto ourselves, and that we all do have our own individual experiences, and yet there are these shared common themes that are unique to all of us. What am I trying to say here is for me the power of art is in its ability to both make us feel less alone, and to take us down a peg when we feel a little too big for our britches, because it's true that nothing really matters. And as you encounter great works of art from geniuses of the past, it's very impossible not to feel inadequate, unequal to the task of writing something wonderful, and then with that is great comfort, because you don't have to. You can't.
Yeah.
I'll never be Bob Dylan, for instance, and that's okay. Well, what's Korby got to say? Well, what's my take on this thing? And that's a great solution to the problem of feeling inadequate. Just to bring it back to that task, that thing we were talking about at the beginning of the critical mind and the open mind. Mm-hmm. Those two things. So the record just came out. The initial record came out in September, and then we just released 3 songs for a deluxe edition last week. It's another unfolding, another iteration.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Walt Whitman Leaves of Grass kind of idea. And so you're going to be heavy at tour for the spring?
Yeah, I head out next week. We're going to do a West Coast and Mountain West
solo
run.
With band?
I got the full band, so we're a 6-piece right now. A lot of Nashville folks and a lot of Austin folks. Did you
have to spend some time learning how to play a different kind of show, be it the solo show versus the full band show?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I spent my first 6 years solo, or with maybe an acoustic player with me, and I remember the first time I had a bass player and a drummer, and I thought my timing was pretty good, and I realized I'm just all over the place, and I had to tune. It was a very different thing. I love, as a fan and as a performer, I love both sides. Being a rock band or a honky tonk band, and there's an energy that gets me so excited, and I feel more able to connect with larger crowds in a way that is intoxicating and exhilarating. but it's not really my natural state. Like I don't feel super comfortable doing it. The singer-songwriter thing is how I came up and where I feel most comfortable, where I can tell a story about the song. It's about connecting, and I mean it's all about connecting, but when it's just you and a guitar, that requires different muscles for me, and it's, I just feel much more natural in that. And there's nothing like that feeling of feeling like you have a room full of people or a theater full of people where it can be pin drop silent, or you've made them laugh or you've made them cry, and you're just in it. You can feel the energy, and you feel like you have control of where things are going. And even if you lose that, there's confidence that you can get it back. And that's a really magical thing for me as well. So I started off doing the solo stuff, and then coming up in Texas, there's a lot of my second record, I had a song that was kind of a minor regional hit, and it was just a rock and roll song, and I didn't even have a band at that point, and so I had to go get one, because all of a sudden my crowds like tripled or more, and they were coming out to hear that song, and so I had to assemble an outfit that could deliver it. Equal
to the task. Yeah. Speaking of songs, maybe you could play one here in the studio if you were so obliged.
I'd love to.
You want to set that up?
Yeah, this is excuse me. I wrote a song with MC Taylor, aka His Golden Messenger, and we had never met before. I was just a big fan of his, and he came over to my house here in Nashville, and I had a title and a couple lines, but the title was I think I'll Stay Here a While. And it sort of stemmed from I was looking out my window one day just watching a bird build a nest, and it's one of those rare times for me where I wasn't on my phone or spinning out about something, or I have a really hard time just getting still and being present and being okay with that. It's looking for stimuli and dopamine and a rush of some kind, anything to avoid just being with myself. And it was this one day where I was just having a lovely time being with myself and watching nature. And so I popped in my mind, I want to stay here a while. I want to capture this and remind myself that this exists so I can come back to it. And so I pitched him the idea, and we wrote the bulk of it that evening.
Can't wait to hear it.
Looking out my window on this easy afternoon, just daydreaming and humming on a tune, letting my mind go where it wants to go. I'm not in a hurry, no reason to worry, nothing I've gotta know. I spent so long climbing the hill, but I only started moving when I got still. The pace these days, it suits my style, and I think I'll stay here a while. Look at that old blue jay building up her nest. She don't take up from nobody. Something's on her mind. She's gonna get it off her chest. Let me be that blue jay, knowing I belong. And no matter what lies on the road up ahead, may I always have my song. All those years chasing a thrill, but I never could get my fill. These these days I can't help but smile. So I think I'll stay here a while. It seems like forever I was holding on so tight. Life was a struggle. Oh, in love it was a fight. Won't somebody save me? I cried and I cried. Turns out what I needed all along, it was right here inside. I worked so hard to get that lesson learned. I'd like to spend time with the peace I've earned. Sounds like my station on the dial, and I think I'll stay here a while.
Man, that was fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. And I was wondering in that second verse, we recorded this right before we started talking, and when you were playing that, where the bird image came from. So, for some reason, I was actually like telling myself, I wonder how they did MC come up with that line, or that was it like, let's take it to the bird in a second. But now I know that the bird was the impetus for the whole thing.
Yeah. There's a blue jay, which I didn't know much about, and then I researched it, and apparently blue jays are the universally acknowledged asshole of the bird kingdom. And
is that true?
Yeah, I think they're dicks.
Really, bullies to other birds.
Yeah.
They steal branches or steal twigs and stuff.
Yeah, they're just bad news.
Just pretty things, can't be trusted. The music business has changed a lot since you got involved, and you've weathered some huge iterations in it, and now we're in this post or die season, which I hope dies. I don't think it will. And are you a guy that's made peace with, and maybe even kind of enjoys some of that aspect, or would you, given your druthers, just write the songs and make the load in time?
I'm more the latter. There are times I'll have beautiful little stretches where I'm enjoy creating content or posting things, or but those are kind of few and far between. Mostly it feels like an inauthentic job, and I guess that's the key. Is it's a necessary thing, and so the key is finding a way to make it authentic. So I guess what I'm saying is there are times where I feel like I can do that and it's kind of fun, and then there are but the times that I don't feel like I can do that, then I feel very exposed and like an idiot.
Yeah. What's a time where it was fun? Is there something that comes to mind where you were like, okay, this is me?
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, I'm trying to think of a couple. One, there was many years ago, it was on Twitter or something, and it was like Labor Day. And I've had this series of just bizarre jobs before I became a musician, which is also a bizarre job. But and so I was just posting about my job history, and it was like I was a medical patient but not getting drugs, but training doctors. So I had to come in and they'd give me a script. I was an actor basically, and I'd come in and it would be like, I'm a schizophrenic with herpes. And so then I had to pretend to be this while this one doctor has to diagnose me, or the aspiring doctor, and then all the actual doctors and professors are watching through a one-way window and judging him on his bedside manner. Okay. And or I was Frosty the Snowman at the mall one winter. Just all these random things. I was the handprint guy doing for people's boobs on the beach. Just
wait, what does that mean?
So I lived on this beach, and there was a guy named Rembrandt who was a body painter. You know, everybody's out on the beach, and he would just go out and for whatever he would paint a Confederate flag on your back, or whatever, just kind of redneck stuff. And he came to me one day. I was at the bar I was playing at, and he said, "I have a proposition. I want you to be my handprint man." I was like, "What is that?" I said, "I have no artistic ability." Yeah, he was like, "I want to hire you." I said, "I can't. I don't paint." He's like, "No, this is easy. All you do is stick your hand in a bucket of paint and then apply it to women's breasts, and I'll give you $5 every time you do that." And I'm 22 at the time, so I was like, "This is a job. This is the best job ever." Because Rembrandt was a really creepy character, and ladies were not
his hands
hiring that. And I was 20. He was like, "You're young, and you're not going to scare them off like I do." And so I was like, "I'm in." And so he said, "Let's meet at the bar the next day." And like 9 a.m. we were going to get together. He was going to show me the job, and we were going on the beach, and I was going to start putting my hands on boobies and getting paid for it. And he got arrested overnight for indecent exposure or something like that. And so I never got the gig, but it was a lot of just one of many like bizarre sort of things I had. So I remember posting about it and then asking people for their weirdest jobs. And so it became this really fun back and forth where it was like, I felt it was natural to just share these things for me, and then to get the feedback from people of like, "Well, I'll see your handprint man job, and I'll raise you." I was a nude trapeze artist in a Chinese circus, and it's like, so that's fun when it's just like it's just people riffing, or I'm not having to put on a character.
You're not promoting anything.
I'm not promoting anything. I'm not putting on a character. It's just like, "Oh, this is interesting to me. Let me talk about it." And then when people respond to it, it's like, okay, that's cool. But even that, it's like that lasts for a minute, and then I start going, I have some level of social anxiety and a desire for a certain amount of privacy. And so that's when I get sideways, is when it's like, you have to go out and show yourself or present yourself, and I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
Then I start reconsidering my career.
You have a lot of like laugh out loud, funny writing in your songs. And I'm also a really big fan of Todd Snyder, who is known for that. And I remember coming across something in an interview of his where he kind of expressed concern about, am I the funny guy, or do people take me seriously as a songwriter? And do you have you at a time had that same feeling? Or
Yeah, for sure. And I remember I wrote a song called "She Left Me for Jesus," and I came to Todd. And I played it for him because I played it for him and Ray Wiley Hubbard, because they both had songs that were less than serious, that were at risk for defining them, and in Ray's case for a long time did. And I thought about Loudon Wainwright, like Dead Skunk in the Middle of the Road. It was like he was an amazing artist who, to a high percentage of people, is known only for this shticky song. And so I had a real fear of that, so I played it for Todd. I played it for Ray, and I remember Ray saying, he's once you let the cat out of the bag, it's really hard to get it back in. And so I he's saying, once you show that part of yourself to the world, it can be hard to change their opinion or their mind and they can see you that certain way. And so I remember with that record, I have 14 songs on that record. And I put it last. This is back when people listened to records. That was the main form of listening to it. So I was like, if they're going to hear this, they're going to get through 13 other songs that are not that, and at least know that there's more to me than that. And I still go through it. So I love humor, and I love humor in music. It's a big part of when I was growing up, the stuff that really appealed to me, and still to this day, if done well, it's one of my favorite things. But I also like a lot of other elements, and those are maybe more important to me in some way. Whatever best relays the emotion or gets to the point where you're feeling the thing.
It's harder to make people cry than laugh, I think.
Yeah, and my vision or my dream was always to have a song that could do both, you know, or at least a show that can do both. But sort of my desire was to be able to craft a song where you can have that whole roller coaster of emotions and make people at least smile and then tear up at the same time, and because it's a full human experience, you know, and so that's appealing to me. So when I do my shows, I'm very conscious of trying to have that ride and hit different places emotionally. I want to see that in a show that I'm watching, and it's fun for me to do it in a show I'm playing, and it makes me feel connected to the audience in a genuine way.
Yeah, I relate both as performer and audience, and you do that pretty much better than anybody.
Oh, thank you.
I hope to catch a show on this next run when you come back to town.
Yeah.
And congratulations again on the new iteration. And thanks so much for sharing a little of yourself with us.
Oh, I really enjoyed talking with you. Thanks, Korby.
We'll do it again.
The Morse Code Podcast is produced by Korby Lenker and Jared Hammond in East Nashville, Tennessee. Our executive producer is Randa Newman. You can find full videos for this and all previous episodes at morsecodepodcast.com.